All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing a fun type of video. Some people asked me over a little bit of time, so I decided I'd finally look into this one, finally give my thoughts on Flat Earth. All right, so I thought this would be a fun one to go ahead and do. Over time, people have kind of been asking me this, like, Trev, what are your thoughts on Flat Earth? And it's become pretty big online. You know, there's a Flat Earth Society that Barack Obama's even mentioned, and I have different people online that are kind of promoting some of these ideas. I am a huge fan, if you guys didn't know, not just of TV series, but I'm also a huge fan of conspiracy theories. I love to kind of hear about different conspiracy theories and then research them and try to figure out in my own mind whether or not I think that they might be correct or whether they're totally nonsense or they're totally wrong. So this is one that's become pretty popular online the last few years, probably since about, I want to say, maybe 2015 or 2016 or so and kind of onward, and it doesn't seem to be going away. Recently, even there was one of the stars of Stranger Things who plays Eleven. She did a kind of an interview online, YouTube, with Mark Sargent, who's one of kind of the leading flat Earth promoters, I guess, right? There's a there's a flat Earth community online, this whole thing. So I'll be honest with you guys at first, because I love researching different conspiracy theories, and some of them I think, you know, like, okay, that makes sense, that's probably true, and we probably aren't told the truth about that, or over here maybe this one is kind of in the middle, or this one I'm not sure about, or that one's definitely false. At first I started with this whole kind of concept of, why do people even think this is why is this a thing, right? Why is this a thing? Why are there some people in 2015 or now 2019 that believe the Earth is flat, or we're living on a flat plane? And so I had to research it quite a bit so I could even kind of do this video with you guys and kind of give my thoughts on it, because at first I just thought it was this nonsensical thing. That's just like, why would you think this? For the last 500 years, pretty much everybody knows that it's a sphere. At least we're taught when we're 5 years old or 6 years old. I mean, most grade 1 classrooms or kindergarten classrooms have a globe, and you can spin it, and the kids go around, they play with it, they look at, where are we at? Okay, and the teacher comes, that's where we are, and this is this place, and that's that place. And so, and then you spin it around, and you get to see, I don't know, Russia or whatever, and you get to see different continents and everything, and there's the North Pole, there's Antarctica, this little thing. So why is this a debate, right? Like I had to go into this to kind of understand. So I had to go through, to be honest, a few months to even finally get to an understanding of what it is these people believe in, and try to make sense of this to myself, of why would people believe this. Because at first, okay, there's one of their character traits, for example, is agreeableness versus disagreeableness. Men, for example, are typically more disagreeable than women are, which is why a lot of conspiracy theorists tend to be male, right? Because they're more disagreeable, so they go against, they're more mistrusting of authority, they're more disagreeable, so they kind of go against what they're told. So if they're told by the government this, they think that, and they go the other way. So what I thought at first was I thought it was disagreeability psychologically to the extreme. Like, when people are like, I don't believe anything you're telling me, I don't, maybe they don't vote because they think either party, no matter which one wins, the elites, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and people like this are the ones who make all the moves anyway, which they might be right about. You can go into that one if you want to kind of learn about, secret societies, Freemasonry, Illuminati, and whether or not you think it's right, whether or not you think it's true or not. I do think it's interesting, though, that most countries have central banks, and the United States debt counter just keeps clocking. Every country's does. And it's like, well, they're in this much debt, and every minute that goes by, they're in trillions, and then a year later, they're in even more. And it's like the national debt counter just keeps going up and up and up and up. But who are they in debt to? No one ever asks, who are they in debt to? They're in debt, but who? Who are they in debt to? So it's some of them are interesting, and some of them, like I said, there might be, some of them might be 100% true, some of them might be partial truths, right, half truths. And some of them might not, because I don't think that people are ever going to be told the truth about absolutely everything by their government. They really can't, if you think about it, because anytime something happens that the government wouldn't want people to know about, they're going to lie about it. And politicians, That's what they are. They're liars. They're professional liars. How many actually do what they say they're going to? None of them. None of them do. So sometimes they might not be allowed. Sometimes they might. Sometimes they might want to build a huge wall, and then I don't know. Maybe they get a phone call from 33rd degree Freemason or somebody who says, hey, no, you can't do that, or whatever. I don't know. Anyway. So back to the whole conversation. I mean, it ties in with others as well too, right? If you have a global elite that's kind of ruling the world secretly, hidden hand, behind the scenes, letting people know what they're allowed to know, what they're not, would they tell them the truth about that? Well, you think that they would tell them the truth about the shape of the place that they're living. But there's some interesting conversations online. Some of the videos you can look up are videos of ships going out to sea and people zooming in on them, and some of them that will go out past the horizon, so you can't see them from your point of view. They are totally disappeared. They have totally gone over the horizon, which people used to think was curvature. So you see the horizon, you see it close to a point, and in the middle, and people would think that it'd be going, and that's what I thought too. This is something that they kind of showed me. I got to give them credit for the flat earthers, right? Because they showed this to me. I didn't know this. Is that when it goes over, if it was over curvature and you zoomed in, it wouldn't bring it back, right? If you had like a really good high quality zoom type camera that has 80 times optical zoom or crazy levels of optical zoom, that can bring these ships and things back into view. You'd think that if it was a big sphere, or it's a ball Earth, that as they went over the curvature and they disappeared and you saw everything kind of go over, that they would be. And that's what I think, that was one of the main arguments, that the Earth is a sphere or is a ball or is round, is that when they would go over, they would disappear. So they used to think, well, it went over the curvature of the Earth. So now where you're going, you're not able to see it. But then if that's true, then zooming in on it won't have any effect, because it would be behind the dip. It would be over the dip. You can zoom in as much as you want, but it's not going to bring it back because it's already gone over. However, there's lots of videos on YouTube you can look up that show that after something has disappeared over the horizon, when they zoom in, it comes back. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And sometimes not even just one, but you can have several. You can have a few different ones. And then there's also counter videos for that, where it gets really interesting. There's an English one I saw where he zoomed in and he brought some objects back, but then there was something in the water above, and you just saw a part of it. But it seems to me that probably doesn't disprove what they're saying, that it could be flat. What it does is it tells you didn't zoom in enough, because your vantage point has gone further, but it hasn't gone. If you zoom in even more of those objects will come back. You can't zoom in forever because there's atmosphere and things in the way, that when you zoom, the haze of it's going to knock it out. You're not going to be able to see forever. So you're not going to be able to see from one continent all the way to another, even if it was flat all the way across, because there's things in the way. But that one for me was the most interesting, because that's where they taught me something. I was like, I didn't know that, because I thought it was going over a curve. I thought that when they crossed the horizon and you could no longer see it, that it was actually going over the curvature, and that's what you're experiencing at that moment. Well, obviously, zoom technology with a handheld, even $1,000 camera you can buy, can prove that that's not true, and that's not the case. And so, it brings us some interesting questions, right? It does. Also, basically, another part of the theory is that NASA and all of these space agencies are totally nonsense. Some of the stuff, and I have to give it to them, like if you look at the moon landings and stuff like that, some of the pictures are very suspect. There's one where it's a NASA photo. Maybe I'll find it for you guys later if I can find it online. You can find all these online. But there's people think there's like a UFO in the top. There's a reflection on the visor of one of the astronauts, one of the Apollo missions, and people think like, oh, it's a UFO. It's a UFO on the moon. And then you look at it really closely, and it's like, dude, it's like a floodlight. You know what I mean? It's like an electronic floodlight in a studio. You know what I mean? And then the parallax, another one they bring up, which is motion parallax for the backgrounds of the Apollo missions. The parallax doesn't hold, so meaning the background doesn't match properly when you shift your position. It's not flowing properly. It's either the same, which means it's fake, right? This is what it means. It means that it's a screen in the background. Front screen projection line is separated, and then the screen in the background is what you're seeing at the back, which is very interesting. So again, it's disagreeability. If you're a person that's completely agreeable, right, then this is not something that you're going to be able to get into, because you're going to say, no, I trust authority, whatever. They never lied to us. That's what it is. If you're kind of a more disagreeable person, then you're going to look at it. You're going to say, well, maybe this isn't true. Maybe we didn't go to the moon. I'm not sure, right? So it's interesting. But of course, you have to throw that out if you're gonna believe in flat Earth. You're also going to have to throw out all the NASA pictures, which admittedly do pretty much all look Photoshopped to me. And they do admit, I think, in times, there's videos you can watch and listen to where they do admit that they do Photoshop all of basically the pictures that they release. Because they have to kind of piece them together based on where they're taken and that. So it's interesting. It's like, are there any actual real pictures? And there's another thing they bring up. Are there any real pictures of Earth from space? And that are not photoshopped or are not kind of doctored to look a certain way to make it look like a sphere. And there are some interesting Photoshop effects that I know how to do because I use Photoshop. I took Photoshop in school, and then I've used it, for thumbnails and stuff for videos every day for pretty much almost 11 years now. So I'm pretty good with it. And there's certain things that when you get good with it, you kind of see, like for example, the spherize effect and certain things like gradients with transparency to make things look like they're kind of. Sometimes you can use it for text and stuff, and it makes things look a certain way. So you can see that in some of the pictures. It's like, I notice, I know that effect. I can do that too. I can do that in Photoshop. That's a cool effect. So, they bring us some cool stuff. Another thing you can take a look at, which I think is very interesting, is some of the footage from the International Space Station, where you see people's clothing kind of go up in certain ways, like around their belts and that kind of thing, like kind of stay up in certain ways that if they truly were kind of floating around, it doesn't really fit, doesn't make sense. Maybe certain windows that might be green screen or things like this. I think it's interesting. So if they catch something, I'm man enough to say, hey, you know what? I didn't know that was true, and maybe I need to look at it some more. I need to check into it more and kind of find out. But so far from what I've seen online and what I've seen people kind of promote, some of it you kind of have to comb through it. Basically, the first page of YouTube with regards to flat Earth and conspiracy theories is mainly comedy stuff. It's mainly comedy stuff and people making fun of it and this kind of thing. But there is some good stuff in there that I personally didn't know of, which is, for example, perspective and zooming in further, bringing back things that I thought were over curvature. So very interesting stuff to me. After looking at it for a little while, I'm not ready to just throw it away 100% instantly, but it does kind of bring up some interesting points, which is that if a lot of the theories and a lot of things that we follow were created by Freemasons, then it stands to reason possibly that kind of the whole angle would be then to promote kind of a anti-Christian or anti-religious type of worldview scientifically, which would be, everything against what, because if the Earth is a flat plane, then intelligent designers, their points are like, that's if the Earth is a flat plane, then intelligent design is most likely true. Most likely, just like a video game. You go into a video game, you play World of Warcraft or a simulation game, you go into it, it renders what it needs to render. The stars overhead are just lights because they don't need to be rendered in for the player. And if they zoom in on it, maybe they see the light in a different way. But does it necessarily need to be a planet? No, it doesn't, because you can just, if it's a simulation, if it's created, then all you have to do is show it in a way that makes it work for that player. You don't have to actually code it in the actual locations and load it into RAM and load it into your simulation. It's unnecessary to do so. So if the Earth is flat, if it is a flat plane, then intelligent design is like, it makes way more sense than if it's unnecessary. And most of the science has made it that it is unnecessary to have a creator. If you have this Big Bang, you have all this other stuff, then it isn't, and we're just one planet of so many. And for example, we're rotating around the sun, and that's rotating. Milky Way galaxy is moving, everything's moving. Whereas from the other viewpoint of, for example, flat Earth would see it as things are moving. We're stationary, and the sky's kind of moving over us. The stars and everything, and all that. So it's interesting stuff, man. It's definitely something you can look into. If you've never looked into it and you like this kind of stuff, I'd say check it out. Hear what they have to say. Me, I'm not 100%. I'm not a flat earther, I wouldn't say. I don't think there's enough there to kind of go all the way there yet for me. Of course, I've watched a lot of movies and a lot of sci-fi over the years, being like a computer geek, and I do have a bachelor's degree in computer science, so I got to go on that side unless I see something. Unless I get myself a really good camera with a couple 100 times zoom, and I zoom in really far, and I start seeing stuff that there's no way you're supposed to see. One interesting book is 200 Proofs. the Earth is flat, or you can look it up online by Eric Dubay, and it's kind of interesting. It goes through lighthouses and things like this that, based on the measurements and based on the circumference, you shouldn't be able to see certain things that you can see if you zoom in far enough. So, interesting stuff. Check it out if you guys haven't looked into it, and let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Do you guys think that the Earth is a sphere, or are you into this flat Earth thing? Do you think the Earth could potentially be flat and we live in some kind of soul-based, God-created simulation, and life is just kind of some kind of journey simulation of the sort, and it's all the Luciferian elite, Freemason connected Illuminati pyramid of power that's trying to convince everyone otherwise. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. If you like the video, please thumb it up below. You can share, you can favorite, and subscribe at the bottom left if you're new. That's it for this one. I'll see you guys again soon for another. As always, this is Trev, and I'm saying peace later, guys. See you soon.